right. This chimney is the remnants of Hawaii's first sugar mill. Wasn't a good place to be growing sugar. The topsoil's a little shallow and they didn't have quite as much rain as they needed. The machinery was powered by mules. And in their best year, they produced 300 tons of sugar. The last sugar mill in Maui, which shut down about 3 or 4 years ago, used to produce 500 tons of sugar a day. So they've improved the efficiency of the mills a little bit. This is another spot you could easily spend the entire day. If my niece comes to visit, Circle Island might turn into a 4 or 5 day trip. And if you see it from the opposite direction, it has a turtle shape from that side too. Y'all heads off to the left, tail off to the right. Yeah. Ranch, been owned by Dr. Garrett Judd's family since 1850. When the British came here in 1778, they brought the diseases with them. The Hawaiian people had been living in isolation for anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 years and had no exposure to Western diseases, and it was absolutely devastating to them. Within 100 years, it reduced their population by about 90%. About 400,000 Hawaiians living here when Captain Cook arrived. Within 100 years, there were about 40,000 Hawaiians, 40,000 immigrants. So they're definitely physicians. Dr. Garrett Judd was a New Jersey physician. Came out here and fell in love with Hawaii, renounced his American citizenship, became a citizen of the Kingdom of Hawaii, and became King Kamehameha III's personal physician and trusted advisor. In 1848, Kamehameha III started allowing private ownership of property. And in 1850, Garrett Judd bought 2,200 acres for $1,000. The next generation doubled his land holding, but prices were going way up. The next section of a little over 1,000 acres cost $2,000, and then the final section of a little over 1,000 acres was $5,000. So $8,000 bought 4,400 acres from the beach to the mountains in Hawaii, 7 square miles. My family did not have quite that same luck investing in real estate, and a friend in Memphis was a crusty old police sergeant. He did major accident investigation, and he had to investigate the accidents involving patrol cars. From the stories Ken has told me, I think encouraging police officers to drive their own cars is probably an excellent idea. Yeah. Now, some of the long-term planning for the state of Hawaii, and this is on every island, they're looking at relocating a lot of the major roads. All the major roads were built along the shoreline and sea levels going up. sometimes call jaywalking our state sport. I think that's bonus jaywalking when you don't even look this way when you come over to this half. I did this tour last summer, when there was a tropical storm in the area. I told them if waves were coming over this road, I was going home. I'm a middle-aged coward with plans on being an old coward someday. Cowardice has served me well through the years. Although if I refer back to a sermon I got in church a few years ago, I can't call myself middle-aged anymore. Remember the pastor was saying, those of you who are 55 years old and say you're middle-aged, how many 110-year-olds do you know? Maids for doing maintenance in the hotels. Well, they mentioned the power was out here a day or two ago. This must have something to do with it. Yeah, about 38 years ago, my aunt wiped out on the ice and took down a telephone pole. And she was only in the hospital for a day. She got a knock on the head, but she wasn't hurt bad. And said the worst. About a week later, she got a bill from VEPCO, the Virginia Electric Power Company. Read the letter, "Dear Mrs. Phillips, it has been brought to our attention that you have damaged our property." And said at that time, if you ever want to know, the light pole was $500, installation was $1,000. And she had knocked out power for 500 people. She didn't get a bill for lost revenue, though. VEPCO, Virginia Electric Power Company. She lived in Richmond, Virginia. I wouldn't know. In fact, she hadn't even lived there in over 20 years. Okay. Yeah, my aunt and uncle retired in the 90s and moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. And he passed away about 8 or 9 years ago. And anyway, Maui County tried to ban GMO crops. It was a grassroots effort, raised $80,000 on an island with 150,000 people. DuPont and Monsanto spent over $8 million to defeat this initiative. They outspent them by 100 to 1 and lost anyway. But then they had it overturned in court. And I'd say the rationale there seemed a little bit questionable to me. They ruled that it was the supremacy of federal versus state law. I can see that argument if Maui County was trying to allow something that was banned by federal law, but I don't see any reason why a state can't pass an environmental regulation that exceeds federal law. California's been doing it on auto emissions regulations since the early 70s. And this is our idea of a food court here. The old sugar mill has food trucks everywhere, and when I used to work for FedEx, I joked that this is where our old trucks go to die.